Hello everybody, this is Maniac4Bricks, and we're here with an update about Bazaar Lego. In the last video, I mentioned that I sent out a book proposal to No Starch Press, who has done many different books with Lego fans as authors, and I thought this would be a good way to go for my book. This is something that would stand out among those other books, and among most Lego books, since I don't really see a lot of historical Lego books that are written every so often. They might turn up, but usually would have a lot more material in there than their history. And most of the history that's in there isn't really covering the same ground that I am, so I thought this would be unique and stand out very well. I followed the guidelines that No Starch Press put onto their website when it came to how to write the book proposal. I had a good outline in there. I followed every bullet point that they listed and described myself and the intentions of the book pretty clearly. So here is my reply from them. Hey Joseph, thanks for sharing the idea. I don't think we're the right publisher for the project, and I even wonder if a book is the right form for the material. We do try to avoid publishing collector's guides, as they can so quickly become out of date. This seems like this might be a collector's website, something you could update at will, or if you might consider trying to place it as articles within a fan magazine, like Bricks or Brick Journal or Brick Fanatics. Seems like it might be a natural fit in something like that in a shorter form format. I hope this is useful as food for thought. I wish you the best of luck in finding a suitable home for the manuscript. It was honestly a very polite way of refusing this book proposal. I'm not really mad with them. I can kind of see where they're coming from, but I was a little bit thrown off. I wasn't really intending for this to be a collector's guide. It was rather supposed to be just a collection of information, not here's how you can buy this, or here's the value of this, which is something that I more associate with a collector's guide. I even have a Lego collector's guide as an example of this, which I received as a gift some time ago. The collectible minifigure I should say, goes through all different kinds of Lego figures in different years, licenses, and a little history about them. And it even describes it based on the source material for ones that are licensed. But one thing I see throughout all of these is that they will talk about what the value is. There's even a whole section in the back that outlines it by minifigure of what their values are and how to identify them online. And that's something that I wasn't really intending for Bazaar Lego. It was rather just a whole bunch of chapters with different subjects that Lego has covered in different media outside of minifigures or Lego sets, your traditional Lego products. So this is something that I was a little bit thrown off about, that it's a collector's guide. And I think it could be considered that way because of the material that's in there. This is a lot of rare and obscure types of Lego, and something that collectors would be interested in. But the intent was to also talk about what's interesting in the historical way of how Lego developed over time and had to cancel some projects, and maybe they brought some things into a new format. That was really the more accurate angle that I was going for when it came to writing this book. The other thing about a collector's website I'll talk about in just a second, but the other thing about making it as articles for fan magazines. I haven't read Bricks or Brick Fanatics that often, and even a little bit more often than that, but not by much, have I read Brick Journal. I get a few copies every so often, and I do like the articles they write in there, and even some interviews with people who have worked with Lego, be it the photographers for the catalogs, or people who have designed different sets and been able to provide prototypes and things. They're very interesting articles, and they also still have plenty of original material about the community and different builds in each month or so. I don't get it as a regular subscription, though. But one thing I do have to say is that I don't think I could add anything to that material, at least for Brick Journal, maybe the other two magazines, but I haven't read them frequent enough to figure out if that would work. You see, at least with Brick Journal, I do remember an article they've done about certain types of Lego polybags, and as I mentioned in the last video, the Kabaya Sweets, which was one of the different Lego food promotions. This is something I read specifically from Brick Journal, and I didn't take the idea from there, but it's something that I've definitely seen them publish before. So even if I did have some things to add, I don't think it would actually work because it might have already been covered. And like I said, I haven't read every magazine that they've written, but it's possible they could have covered the other subjects that I would have covered in Bazaar Lego. So, as much as I could bring it to their attention, I don't know how well it's going to work. And without being an actual employed writer for either of these magazines, I don't know how well that would work from an outside source either. Now, the part about a collector's website actually sparks my interest. This is something that I've kind of considered on and off when it came to things outside of YouTube. Like, if I wasn't making YouTube videos, could I do just a blogging site? And I actually do have one, link in the description below, for joethemaniac.wordpress.com, where every so often I'll write a different article based on something Lego, or just toys, or just movies, or even TV shows. And they're just things that kind of sparked my interest, but I wasn't sure if I was going to make it into a full-fledged video. The idea about making this book into a blog is something that I've actually seen before in a different medium, but I don't know how well it'll work. There is a site out there that is called Before Mario, and it explores all different kinds of Nintendo products before the video game industry. Nintendo itself has been around since about 1889, and has been developing board games and card games all along that way. Even things like the recent Nintendo Labo, they've done papercraft in the past. And this is kind of just bringing back an old idea, but adding the innovation to video games. So, what's interesting about this is, yes, it's a very comprehensive website, and it has a lot of different things that could be considered collector items. There was a book written about these items from the same person who developed the website, and under the same name of Before Mario. The problem, as I've seen in the review up here from the Gaming Historian, is that the book doesn't really have all the information that the website does. It's actually more convenient for going to the website and reading through everything, even more detail about each item, than picking up the book. And I don't actually know between a blog and a book which is actually going to be a profit. And I'm not really trying to look for a huge profit, but I still like to have something that pays off from all these different Lego items I've purchased over time. And also funding future occurrences such as, other conventions I would be going to. But I felt like a book would be a little bit easier format to digest and something that would be more accessible to people than a website. I mean, I'm sure people could see a website too, but I haven't really been out there frequently enough as exposure for an internet site that I could really set up shop with that. And I feel like the information in here could work a little bit better with a book, because then I could show a bunch of things at once. I get that for a website, I could do it in a way where I could update that information over time. Since I don't have complete lists of certain categories of Lego products, it is a way that I can go through and say, oh, here's something else that I found, or oh, here's more photography about this thing that I only briefly mentioned before. But the intent of the book, when it comes to the format of it, is actually something a little bit familiar and kind of just melding some previous ideas together. I'd say one example is the Lego minifigure year-by-year book. And in this one, it actually has a good way of showing a category of items with some description to each of them, or on the broad category itself, and having pictures all throughout, so you get to see the diversity of those items, but still see how they go together as well. Because this is 2001, and it shows Harry Potter. But you can see how there's all different characters from Harry Potter illustrated through here. It has enough right up here to talk about that time period and some of the items, and each of these talks a little bit more about each figure or each character. So I thought that would be something I would work into the book. And if you heard my last video, you know what I'm talking about. There's even things like the Ultimate Lego book, which I've mentioned before as an inspiration for this book coming to fruition. And one thing I definitely wanted to adapt from this book was it does have the same idea of a category with some captions to go with other things, and still like a bit of a write-up to put it all together, but also a timeline format. This is something that I wanted to have as a visual through here in some way, and still get to show different products along there with some description to them if they need it. Maybe something about the certain time period in which all these things go together. So I mentioned before about the digital building, and that would be something I could break down with Lego Digital Designer or Lego Worlds, one at a time. But the other example I can think of that would take up most of the book when it comes to the writing portion is from Great Lego Sets. This is something that I mentioned in the first idea of how the book would be written, the certain style of it, and this is about a specific group of objects that would have a big write-up about it all together. And, some of it may just be one product that takes up a page or two. So you'll get a good in-depth look and idea about that product, even though you don't have it in hand. And still good looks all the way around it. And, since I have some video games mentioned there'll be different screenshots and things like that. But this book also does the same thing where a bunch of things will go together in a certain category and, briefly describe each of those things, but still know what they're going towards. These are the inspirations that I had for designing the Bizarre Lego book in terms of its writing style. And I mentioned before that there are 3 formats. They kind of stem off of what's in those books. So if you haven't picked those up or haven't read a little bit about them before, that's the angle I'm going for, but not exactly the material. The material is a lot more obscure. And maybe that's why it's been led into the idea of it being a collector's book. There is good news to this, however. Even though I won't be publishing through No Starch Press, I have contacted Dorrance Publishing in December of 2017. This wasn't my first choice. I mean, it was my first choice as a publisher, but it wasn't my favorite choice as a publisher, because I was really hoping for No Starch Press. But this is a good backup for me, and they're already on board with the idea. I've explained it to them in the past, I've sent them a little bit of outlines before, and they're just waiting on my manuscript with pictures. So they'll get a better idea as to how the book will actually be finalized. And I'm still going to work towards that. I'll see how well that goes. And, well, if there is more information that I come across in the future after this book is published, maybe I could do a part 2. Maybe I could do it as an updated and expanded version, like the Star Wars Visual Dictionary. But for right now, I want to try to stick with the book format. I feel like it's something that could still work, but I just need to find the right way to word it and to present it. So thank you for watching this video. Hope you guys enjoyed it. I apologize for it being a little bit longer, but I thought it would be something informative about the update of the book. I thought it would be something that might be worth your time to learn about how it's going and how it's actually going to appear. It's something familiar, but it's something new too. We'll see you next time with more LEGO videos.